Chapter 2 Queen Amanirenas, the one-eyed Kandake of Nubia. You could be the king, but watch the queen conquer. Nicki Minaj. Our venture will now take us further south on the African continent into what is known today as Sudan, but we seek the ancient lands from historical times when it was known as Kush. The Kushite kingdom developed in the lands of Nubia over 1,400 years and was made up of three major city-states, Kerma, Napata, and Meroe. Each city was developed at crucial points in Kushite history along the River Nile near one of many cataracts. The cataracts of the Nile are shallow lengths of water on the river with large boulders and jutting rocks. These cataracts were logistical nightmares for armies and traders, but it was a dream for the rulers. They were able to learn about approaching armies well in advance and tax the traders more accurately. Kerma was first established around 2400 BC near the third cataract on the Nile River. This location gave the city-state an amazing position defensively and economically, which allowed them to thrive with little resistance to their growth in power. The second city-state was Napata, formed in 15th century B.C. near the fourth cataract of the Nile River. The city became an economic and cultural hub. It also became a religious center with the cult of Ammonius gathering around Mesa Jebel Barkal. The third city-state created was Meroe, formed in 800 BC between the 5th and 6th cataract of the Nile River. The rulers chose the location because of its defensible positioning, access to trade routes and many mineral deposits and rich farming lands. The Kingdom of Kush was a powerful East African kingdom which was also known as the Land of the Bow due to the accuracy and strength of their archers. Kushite archers were famed for shooting out the eyes of their enemies. The Kushites were a thriving civilization. One of its closest competitors was Egypt, who they went to war with intermittently over the years and was never truly taken over by them during the New Kingdom period from 1500 to 1100 BC. Egypt ruled most of Kush. The Kushite kingdom re-emerged from the city Napata as their Egyptian overlords were overthrown by the Hyksos. The Kushites' kings, over time, in return, took over Egypt and became the new rulers, forming the 25th dynasty of a new reunified Egypt, which now included all the lands of Kush. The Kushite king's rule of Egypt came to an end when the Assyrians and Egyptians rose up against them in 7th century BC. The Kushites were forced out of Egypt and back into their lands, and in response to the sacking of their towns and cities, they placed their capital at Meroe. The legendary land of Kush, which was ruled by the Kandake or Kentake, or Latinized as Candace, is the traditional Meroitic term for the sister of the king of Kush. Succession in Kush was done maternally so the Candace would bear the next heir, making her a queen mother. The exact Candace we seek is Amanirenas Kord Liktuli. She reigned from about 40 BC to 10 BC and is one of the most famous Candace because of her role in leading the Kushite armies against the Romans in a war that lasted 5 years. From 27 BC to 22 BC, the war between the two great powers started with the fall of a next great power. The Egyptian kingdom was annexed by the Roman Empire after they went through a period of civil war. Due to the fertility of the Egyptian lands, it was considered the breadbasket of the Roman Empire, so its subjugation was key. The Egyptians were defeated by Emperor Caesar Augustus of the Roman Empire, and he placed it firmly into the realm. Before Egypt was taken over by the Romans, it was in the hands of Cleopatra, the ruler of Egypt, a descendant of Ptolemy, a general of Alexander the Great. At first, Cleopatra VII sought Julius Caesar's help in reclaiming Egypt from her brother Ptolemy XIII, and she allied herself with Caesar. Cleopatra obtained Caesar's help in vanquishing her enemies and establishing her dominion over Egypt by developing a romantic and political partnership with him. Mark Antony, who had been one of Caesar's closest associates, became Cleopatra's new ally after Caesar's murder in 44 BCE. Caesar was famously murdered by senators in Rome for his act of doing away with the Republic. He had made himself supreme leader of Rome, and this did not sit well with the ruling class. Cleopatra's love and politically advantageous relationship with Antony helped her grow her authority in the Roman Empire and keep Egypt independent. Octavian, Caesar's adopted successor, subsequently became known as Augustus, and he was among those in Rome who opposed their relationship. A danger to his authority and Rome's stability is how Octavian saw Cleopatra and Antony's alliance. The crucial Battle of Actium occurred in 31 BC when Octavian waged war on Cleopatra and Antony. The pair rallied their troops, but in the end Octavian's better military strategy and resources ultimately proved too much for their combined troops. Antony and Cleopatra ran away to Egypt since they knew they were doomed to lose. Antony and Cleopatra both took their lives in 30 BC as they were about to be captured by Octavian's armies. Both the Ptolemaic dynasty and Egypt's incorporation into Rome came to a close with Cleopatra's death. The exacting vengeance that Octavian carried out was a political move that served to establish his dominion as the first Roman emperor and, by extension, the Roman Empire. In classic Roman style, after conquering the Egyptians, Emperor Augustus set his eyes onto Kush as their next conquest. It is at this pivotal point in history Kandake Amanirenas rose to the occasion and defended her kingdom at all cost. Amanirenas is believed to have come into this world between 57 BC. She also was the second of the 8 Kandakes to rule the land of Kush. Her husband, King Tereticus, had passed away in an earlier battle with the Romans, leaving her and Prince Akinadad to run the nation and deal with the impending foreign threat. The queen reorganized her army, and from her throne in the city of Meroe, Amanirenas, along with her son, led an army of 30,000 soldiers to take the fight to the Romans in Egypt in 27 BC. Understanding the small size of her forces in comparison to the Romans, she resorted to quick raiding and sacking tactics, or what we would call today guerrilla war tactics. Her forces would attack and sack the Roman-controlled towns from the Egyptian city, Aswan. The Kushite forces aggressively stormed the lands, destroying and vandalizing everything in their path, leaving nothing for the enemy to take advantage of. A large statue of Roman Emperor Augustus felt the wrath of the soldiers of Kush. The severed bronze head of Augustus was taken to Meroe to be buried under the queen's throne to exalt her over the Caesar. The head was then relocated to the entrance of a temple built in celebration of the defeat of Rome as a direct insult to the Romans. In response to these many outrageous acts against the Roman Empire, Gaius Petronius was appointed as the new governor of Egypt. Once installed, Gaius hit the ground running. He led an expedition of 10,000 soldiers to reconquer territory and turn the war around by invading Kush. The battles and skirmishes between the armies were so furious and deadly that Kandake Amanirenas would lose an eye in the heat of the battle and her son Prince Akinadad in another. Both civilizations were mounting up deaths and losses with this war of attrition at the end of 22 BC. Kandake Amanirenas had now sacrificed so much to the war to stop the Roman expansion into Africa. Petronius and his soldiers won many battles against Kush, and they sacked the city of Napata. The Kushites fought on bravely with Amanirenas at the head of their army. Her forces were unsuccessful at overtaking premies known today as Khazar Ibrim. The two powerful nations were in a technical stalemate. The only path now was peace negotiations, which began in 22 BC. The peace talk brought an end to the military actions in both lands and re-established the Roman Empire's borders to the south while paying respect to the borders of the land of Kush. Trade was re-established between the two civilizations. The Kushites did not pay any tributes to the Romans like most nations of that time. Candace Amanirenas wisely spared her people the indignity of a long, drawn-out war with the Romans and did not cede any lands to their enemy. Her fearlessness and intellectual prowess set her apart from most of her male counterparts at the time, and her legend will continue to live on.